Hi guys, in this video we're going to talk about step functions. What is a step function? A step function is a function which graph looks like a staircase. It's a piecewise function composed of functions of constants over restricted domains. Let's take a look at our example. We have a piecewise function with three pieces. The first piece belongs to every single x between 0 and 3, including 0, not including 3. The second piece belongs to the restricted domain between for every single x between 3 and 6, including 3, not including 6. And the last restricted domain for the last piece is for every single x between 6 and 8, including 6 and 8. So let's start by graphing the first piece of the function where f of x equals 1. That means y equals 1. That means if I start with x equals 0, the y value is going to be 1. X equals 1, the y value is 1. X equals 2, the y value is 1. And x equals 3, the y value is 1. So the first piece of the function is going to be graphed like this. I'm including 0 in this graph, or the y value for 0, but I'm not including the y value for 3 because 3 is not part of the domain. We have a restricted domain. Now, for the second piece, the y f of x equals 4, which means y is equal to 4 for every single x between 3 and 6, including 3, not including 6. That means if I start to graph the second piece, I'm going to start at x equals 3. For x equals 3, the y is 4. X equals 4, the y is 4. X equals 5, the y is 4. And x equals 6, the y is 4. And this is the second piece of the graph. Now, since I'm including 3 in the domain and excluding 6 in the domain, I'm going to have an open circle for x equals, for the y value for x equals 6. Now, to graph the last piece of the function, I'm going to have to start with x equals 6. And f of x for every single x between 6 and 8, including 6 and 8, is 6. That means if I start at x equals 6, the y value is 6. X equals 7, the y value is 6. And x equals 8, the y value is 6. And this is the last piece of the function. Now, since I'm including both 6 and 8, I don't have an open circles. Now, if you look at this graph, you will see that it looks like a staircase. That's why this piecewise function is also called a step function. Now, let's evaluate. We have f of 2. That means x equals 2. And if you look at the graph, x equals 2 is in the first piece, and it has a y value of 1. And if you want to look at the function, x equals 2 belong to the first piece of the function, which has an f of x value or a y value of 1. F of 5, that means x equals 5 and x equals 5. If you look at the graph, has a y value of 4. That means f of 5 is 4. We know that x equals 5 belong to the second piece of the function. And if you look at the second piece of the function, it has an f of x value of 4. Now, the last one is f of 8, which means x equals 8. And if you look at the graph to find out what f of 8 is, it's going to be in the last piece of the function, and it has a y value of 6. We know that x equals 8 belongs to the last piece of the function, and f of x for that piece is equal to 6. Now, if we want to identify the domain, looking at the x-axis from left to right, we can see that we're including every single x between 0 and 8, including 0 and 8. And for the range, if we look at the y-axis going from the bottom to the top, we can see that we're including few y values, which are 1, 4, and 6. That's why we're listing these few values in parentheses.